This episode of Archispeak is sponsored by Arcat, and Arcat wants to ask, what are most professionals in architecture dreading? Of course, that's editing down a manufacturer's specification. You're staring down a 54-page spec, and you only want one product and all of its attributes.
There is a better way, and it's not throwing the entire specification into your project documents. It's Arcat.com's Spec Wizard. Spec Wizard is a unique tool that allows you to specify a product in minutes, not hours, by turning a spec into a simple-to-use website. Just select the products and options you want to specify and generate a 3-part CSI spec in multiple formats.
Best of all, it's free. Free, I tell you.
Free.
And it requires no registration. Go to Arcat at arcat.com and try a better way of specifying projects. Spec Wizard, I tell you, it's the bee's knees.
Welcome to Archispeak, the podcast that talks about what it's like to work in the profession of architecture.
Welcome to episode 138 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
All right, so Toys R Us is closing down. What are your feelings and your thoughts about this?
Sad.
Sadness. Hashtag sadness.
Sadness. Deep and complete sadness.
So what are some of your memories of Toys R Us from when it was in all its glory? Because it's been in decline for a very long time. It seems like.
Legal or illegal memories?
What? What does that mean?
I think the statute of limitations has probably expired on you, so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I did any
No, now we have to know what that.
You put it out there.
Yeah.
My happy memories were is when, was it Toys R Us? No. I'm going to have to text her and ask her. My sister used to work in a toy store, and I'm pretty sure it was Toys R Us because I do remember the giraffe. But she, this was back in...
That was Jeffrey.
That's right.
Yeah. And so she, you know what? Maybe it was the decline of Toys R Us is because we don't see Jeffrey often enough.
That might be.
You know, or maybe when he retired.
There's a correlation.
As CEO.
Yeah.
Gotta be. We gotta find out when Jeffrey stopped making public appearances.
You tell your story. I'll find that out.
So she used to work, so she's a few years older than me, like 8. And so when she was working, she would, they give you discounts when you work there and all that other stuff. And so she'd buy me and this is not this is actual legit. I had every single solitary Star Wars toy from the original line, and I just, had everything. And I remember when, and so she would like bring everything home, and I would have everything. And I remember I accidentally lost one of the Imperial, just the guys in black, and I asked her if she could get me one, and she wouldn't or couldn't, and I had to take it upon myself to go get one.
Wow. I'm getting one no matter what. I now
getting one.
I now understand the lead to this question. Jeez.
So yeah.
So you asked before we started recording if you could go back to any store. I would go back and buy those toys.
Yeah, it was
and
funny
bring them back because they're worth a mint. They're worth a mint.
So for anybody who's like, what?
Yeah, sorry.
So a friend of mine posted on Facebook that if you could have $2,000 in 1980s money and go back in time to 1987 and have 3 hours to go shop in a 1987's vintage shopping mall with all of its glory of the fantastic stores and everything else.
B. Dalton
What would you buy?
bookseller? No,
Yeah, exactly.
I would not be going to B. Dalton.
I love B. Dalton though, because they were the only ones at the time
Walden
who were selling
Books.
comic books.
Okay, yeah.
Walden
They had a
Books.
good magazine
the one,
rack,
actually.
that's for sure.
Walden Books. Anyway, back to that
Yeah,
other
sorry.
issue. I'm not going to say anything about like Walden Books and long jackets. Nothing.
Well, jeez, klepto.
God.
Not me.
What?
I hated jackets.
Moving on.
But my friend.
Yeah.
No, but my friend, he knows who he is. I felt guilty, and I'm just like, dude, you should go back. Anyway, so you have three, you have 3 hours to go shopping, and bring back what you bought. What would you buy? And there were some fantastic ones. Mine was jokingly is like I would go to a 1980s Spencer's that has like all the what we thought were the cool graphic tees that are now these cool hipster vintage tees, and I would just buy $2,000 worth of them and bring them back and sell them for $100 and increase my profit. So I'm a business minded fellow.
Yeah.
But the one, and you just alluded to it, the one that was probably like, that's the better one. That's more business minded. It was just stock up on Star Wars toys, and basically you would have unboxed in brand new, pristine condition with no folds on the sides of the box and all of those other things. And, you'd just be able to do that, or maybe go and find, because it's in Walden's Books, find those really, the comic book that has, has tripled in value or quadrupled or, just, it was a limited run. I mean, I actually just found my Death of Superman. And I had 2 Death of Supermans, one in the black packet. You remember that, Neil?
I still have it.
Is it in the black, the all black
Of course it is.
plastic wrap?
Never been opened.
Oh my gosh.
See, so I got 2 of those. I got one to open and one to save.
Yeah,
and
you and about 10 million other people.
Yeah. It has no value.
It's just a cool keepsake.
Yeah.
You have any Toys R Us memories, Neil?
Oh, well, here, I'm going to give you a little update on Jeffrey here. He was finally retired in 2007.
That's a long run.
Oh.
He was formerly known as Dr. G. Raffi from the 1950s print advertisements.
Dang.
Wow. Dr. G. Raffi.
That's right, yeah. So anyway, any Toys R Us... I don't think I have any real good Toys R Us memories other than it was the toy store. I mean,
right. When
you wanted a toy, you didn't go to Sears or Penny's or anything else. You went to Toys R Us. Yep. But probably my best memories, unfortunately, because they're most likely the more recent ones, is shopping at Babies R Us.
That's when I knew they were going down, man.
Kids R Us, Babies R Us.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Babies R Us was a great place. I mean, that's the place you walked through, and it was like going through
We bought all of our strollers at
well,
Babies
yeah,
R Us.
Exactly. I think we bought our strollers, the car seats,
and a car seat,
all of the stuff, the equipment, the things that you needed to raise your kids. I mean, that
all
was
of the
place.
stuff that you're just like, you're just a tiny little human and you need all of this crap.
Right.
Oh, I know. Right.
You have to become a Sherpa to get all that stuff from point A to point B.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, the diaper bag. I think we even registered at some point at Babies R Us.
We did too.
So I would say that's probably my more recent memories of Toys R Us.
Well, though, I don't know if you guys had them again out there, but talking about the 80s mall, did you guys have KB Toys? Because that was the in-mall toy store.
Totally. That was the store that I would go to in the 80s mall with the $2,000. It was KB Toys.
Apparently, I heard that somebody had said that they were going to come back. That somebody's bought the trademark name and all that other stuff, and they were going to try to bring them back. It's kind of like
there's a documentary on Netflix right now. It's a series about the toys of the 80s. That looks pretty interesting, so probably suck you in on.
Thanks.
Yeah,
like I didn't.
You needed something else to watch.
Cormac, you actually didn't know about that one?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Toys of the 80s.
You're usually telling us about shows. Yeah, I have not watched it yet, but I
haven't either. It's on my queue.
I've got a documentary called Documenting Duke. That's what my documentary is right now.
Documenting Duke. Yeah, good. Well, I'll give my story for Toys R Us because I brought it up. But I just remember going there. I was probably in the 5th grade. Actually, I was in the 5th grade because that's when I bought my first computer at Toys R Us.
Whoa.
And this just shows you like what a computer nerd I was and still am. But I
Trash
started.
80?
I bought a Commodore 64.
No, you couldn't get it.
Oh,
I was going to say, yeah, that's what
they carried the whole Commodore line, and this was before the Commodore 128, which was a sleek white beauty. But before that, VIC-20s, Commodores 64.
Oh my God,
that's what they had at Toys R Us, and I bought the keyboard, which was the computer unit, and then a disk drive. And I took those. The disk drive was enormous. It was like the size of this flatbed scanner that I have on my desk here, and took the 5.5-inch floppies or 5 1/4, whatever they were, and I started programming on that thing. Man, I started writing a game back then. 5th grade, hooked it up to the TV because it had like a. I know, it had like an RCA jack out to coax in. I mean, that was how you hooked it up to your TV back in the day. So you just went like straight through the antenna port on the TV.
You know how I would have got my computer back then? I would have waited till you walked out of the Toys R Us.
Yeah, you would have walked.
What a computer!
Give me that. Yeah. So that's like my. It's so funny because it's a toy store, but I bought a computer there because there really weren't that many computer stores. I mean, obviously my dad had an Apple IIe at home, and that was a real computer, and I went and bought this kid's computer that I learned how to, but it was so cool because it was color output, and we hooked it up to the 13-inch color TV. It was, those were the days, man. And I bought a little book to learn how to program, and basically learning how to program was just copying the code that was printed in the book. Right. It wasn't like they were actually teaching you how to program. I guess you would learn by doing, but still learn by copying, just like great artists do.
Just another story about that though. It's like for me, it was my parents could just, my dad would just drop me off there, and like he could, let me just like walk around. Yeah, it's just like you go walk around Toys R Us, and I got to go run this errand, and just you'd be there for. Ever, because you weren't going to go anywhere. You were too busy staring at all.
The idea of Toys R Us is amazing, right? Especially for anybody who, like their theme song. I don't want to grow up, right? I mean, it was one of those places where it was a heaven for kids, right? Because of their amazing amount of toys all in one place, and I even read some little story about how they would encourage their employees to play with the toys, and that's kind of one of the things that you can see that they've lost over the years in the effort to get more and more efficient and less employees and making it more about the numbers and less about like just going in and having a good time and being able to play with stuff right off the shelf. And I think that there was something to that, but it was a place where you could go and just spend a couple hours, kind of like it's like. I don't know what the modern day equivalent. I guess it is an Apple store or something like that. But you literally could just.
Well, as long as you don't mind having a blue shirt hovering over.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to see go away, because I think it was one of those kind of staple stores of the past couple decades or past.
I think that's kind of what has just failed a lot of like. Stores, box stores, whatever, just brick and mortar stores, is when you lose the personal touch, people are like, well, why do I if it's just about the business of things, then why do I need to go?
Well, why do you
into
exist,
that
right?
store?
Like why do you exist?
I can get it online.
I think what's interesting too is these corporations need to get so big to become national chains, to become big box. It really does kind of suck the uniqueness out of it, right? And so it does become a numbers thing and a management thing. And I think the bigger you get, I mean, I can only imagine what the small homegrown toy stores, like we've got one in our village.
We've got a great one that, you go in there and, you can find the nice little old wooden toys and, just kind of the things that you would never find in like
interesting
the big
stuff,
box stores and stuff.
And what's neat about that, I guess, is that I hope, it's probably been a huge struggle for them to survive over the years with Toys R Us's and Targets and Walmarts and all these big box and Amazon, right? Because they've got so much more selection, but these other ones have character and they care about toys, and they're more expensive, but they're local. And so I wonder what it's like, that for the toy store, like in the village where I live versus, their mentality now seeing Toys R Us. I wonder what they're thinking about that, because it obviously affected them then and it probably affects them now. But they're kind of coming out of this, at least lasting a little bit longer than Toys R Us. We'll see how long they last, but it's interesting because of this need to get so big, and then ultimately that is also their demise, right? They have so much space, they have so many mouths to feed. It's really difficult for them to shift gears, change direction, become something smaller again, when so much is riding on that. And I mean, you could even draw a parallel to architecture firms, right? What happens to when you become the machine that is so big that you can't change anymore, because you have so much responsibility to feed all these mouths. And I mean, there's lots of firms out there that hire and fire at will depending on the project that comes. I even heard about employees that are just hopping between projects just to curate their resumes over the years. I mean, it's a very different industry now than it was before, but we do have some extremely large firms out there that are gobbling up these smaller, or I should say medium firms, I guess.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a kind of an interesting thing to think about as far as how this applies to architecture, because there are firms that are as big as Toys R Us, right? And they could, when they go down, they leave. It's like when the Titanic sinks, it creates waves, right? It leaves a lot of people in their wake.
Well, so here's a question that, my wife and I tend to ask each other. And that's when these big box stores go out of business, or they like literally move down the block and build another one.
Just leave a
now they've got a
carcass behind.
shell. Yeah. Now they've got a shell. What happens to that? And a lot of times it just stays vacant for such a long time that, you see the parking lot gets all, like chunked up, or it's oh, hey, the local car dealer is going to, start parking some of their overstock over here. And it just, it looks, it's a blight and things like that. And so you ask, what responsibility do companies that are going out of business, that probably the last thing that they really care about is what happens to their building. What responsibility do they have, or what responsibility does the town have? I mean, Neil, it'd be interesting. I don't know if you guys, on the planning commission. I mean, what do you guys do when somebody moves out and they just kind of like leave the shell behind? I mean, is there any kind of recourse for that, or do you just say, well, they're gone, bye?
Yeah, there's not much you can do from a city aspect. Well, first off, things like Toys R Us stores, Babies R Us too.
Same diff.
I was going to ask actually the same sort of question. What happens when these buildings are suddenly vacated? Not necessarily suddenly, but when they are vacated, what happens?
Eventually.
It's like the rapture.
Eventually becomes a church.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, do they get replaced by another big box, or
sometimes, right?
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes they do stay vacant from a city aspect. I would say
that's where the Halloween stores pop up.
That's where the Halloween. Yes, actually, that's so true. It's where the Halloween stores pop up. It's where eventually perhaps another store moves into, because they either need more space, or what has also happened is sometimes those larger spaces get broken up into smaller spaces. And so you get multiple stores inside these larger buildings. I've seen that happen. And in other cases, after many years of probably sitting there, what we're seeing, at least locally here in my town, is that those spaces are getting, those buildings are being torn down and rezoned into residential.
Yeah.
So that stuff is going away, and we're building more internal, because at least in our town, we have an urban growth boundary. And so we've collectively, as the citizenship, decided we're not going to continue to grow into our hills and our open spaces around our town. And what that basically has meant is that as we continue to grow, because the city's always growing at some rate, sometimes faster than others, depending on the economy and the market, but it just means we're going to grow more internally, which means we get denser, which is a very difficult situation when it comes to how the people in the town deal with, okay, I've grown up in this town. It's been a quote unquote smaller town with single family detached, and we've kind of slowly grown out over time. And then we've decided, okay, well, that's far enough. Now we have to densify to keep growing, and that creates a lot of friction between the people that are already here and the people that we need to house. So it grows into a bigger problem. But getting back to our buildings, what do? We're seeing more of those buildings transform or change, be torn down, and turned into residential.
Yeah, interesting.
So the cities, to answer your question, Cormac, what the city can do is see how those spaces, those either areas of
just
town,
rezoning,
and basically you rezone it into another function, right? That serves the needs of the community. At one point, we needed a big box store, and that served the needs of the community for decades.
I was going to say, do we ever really need?
Well, people want, the stores want to come in, and they're revenue generators.
Exactly. That's
right.
There's the answer right there.
Yeah,
revenue generators.
They're revenue generators, and instead of people having to drive 30 miles to get to that Toys R Us, they can have one in their own backyard, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. We're driving around. It's like, how come everywhere you go, you see the exact same thing, and why is that a good thing? Why is that the MO of these corporations?
Well, maybe that's changing now, right? The economies, the online, Amazon type of thing, that's changing the fabric of our communities, right? Because now these big box stores these businesses don't have to grow to a point to be a national chain. And so it's going to change the fabric of our neighborhoods, because those things are going to go away. I think that answer, getting back to what you asked, Cormac, what do cities do? We adapt. And we change our zoning, we build different things. And that's how we adapt and respond to these large stores closing.
Well, we were, I do that ACE mentoring program, and we've started to do one for the new year. And we were talking with the kids, and, they were talking about how big boxes, are kind of coming in and just changing the shape of like downtown centers and things like that. And we were using kind of like the Towson, Maryland as an example, because that's where this particular project for this year's mentoring session is taking place. And so they were, looking at like, if you drive down this road, there's a bunch of big boxes in this little small downtown that's now just grown up as big box chains and faces and stuff. And I was just like, well, they're like, well, so everything's kind of looking the same. And as you guys just said, we were kind of like homogenizing everything and making it look all the same. So, you're in one city or the other. And I was like, well, you could do that, or cities could take control and kind of mandate what things are. If you want to, come into our city, you've got to conform to our design standards or, an aesthetic or something like that. and I started to pull up. I was like, for the longest time, Walmart wanted to move into DC. DC said no, because, one, we don't have stores that are like big box type stores like that in ours. And, it's just the scale and everything else. And they said, if you ever want to, come into it, you're going to need to change the way you do business to accommodate what, our zoning laws and stuff. And so the 3 Walmarts that are in DC don't look like Walmarts. The signage isn't like this big garish sign or anything like that. They're brick facades. They're smaller. They're stacked up rather than, these big monster footprints. They had to conform to the zoning laws and design standards and all of these other things of these, downtowns, and they feel a lot more. I mean, they feel more integrated into the community. And I pulled up one in particular, and I purposely Google earthed it and put the little dude just away from the sign, and I showed them this building. And I'm like, well, what's that building right there? And they're like, I don't know, it's kind of cool, it's. And I spun them around, and I looked at all of the other buildings around and how it conformed to like the heights of all of the adjacent buildings, and it was paying attention to its context. And then I zoomed into the sign, and they're like, that's a Walmart? I'm like, exactly. That's what they can do. So, I mean, even if you are going to encourage retail in there, and it is something like a big box, I mean, you can encourage them to do something else. Or just say, no, don't come. You're not allowed to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. In my town, Walmart already had a store, and unfortunately it was built out in some larger open space area by the freeway. So, of course, it's a typical concrete tilt-up, big giant box, exactly the opposite of what you were just describing, Cormac. But at one point, they wanted to build one of their superstores. So they bought a piece of property and decided, okay, that's where we're going to put our big superstore, and we're going to close down this other one. And in our city, what the response was is that, again, the only control the city really has, because is in zoning. And so they created a zoning ordinance that basically says you can only be so big. And that limited what Walmart could do. They couldn't build their superstore. And I'm probably glossing over all the details and getting things slightly wrong here. But essentially, they just said, yeah, you can't have that large of a store in our town. And so that basically prevented them from building it. Another example is where I went to school in San Luis Obispo. They actually have an ordinance that forbids drive-throughs. So
yeah, we don't have drive-throughs.
There's no drive-throughs. Any sort of store like not retail, restaurant sort of fast food places. There's no drive-throughs in San Luis Obispo. If there are any, they're from before that happened.
So,
but
in order to encourage walking, reduce
encourage
traffic,
walking, people getting
stuff
out of their cars, the pass-through sort of activity that promotes.
Right.
They
don't want it to become the place where people just stop on the side of the freeway, when they're driving up the 101 and just keep on going through. They want to encourage them to get out of their car.
That's right.
Smell the fresh air. Stay a while.
Yeah.
It's like a
I don't know how well that works, but
and honestly, that's what you want.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, those are the things that we can do as a society or communities to prevent things like that from happening. If we don't want to see those things in our town, that's the way we can control these things.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this kind of leads into, I guess, down a tangent, but the whole idea of creativity there's a mentality to perform fast or similarly to last time, right? Which is, this is what it's leading me to think about this because of the big box thing, right? We've got this thing where because of a brand or because of expediency, right? Because we've already got all the details. All we have to do is slightly adapt it to this new town. Here's the same thing, plop, plop, plop. And it just marches down the superhighway that runs across the entire nation. you've got a bunch of Walmarts that all look the same, and so there's benefits for Walmart and there's also benefits for the customer. But there, as a society, it's very difficult for me to think of this as a benefit, right? Because there is no creativity. It's like that. There's one answer. Here's the answer, and I'm going to do it as many times as possible. And to me, as a designer specifically, or as an architect, I mean, it's one of those things that just pains me to no end. Like I went into a Lowe's the other day, which is like a home improvement store, like a Home Depot, and holy crap, you can't find anything because it's so big. And yeah, I'm sure it's the same as every other Lowe's out there. But it's just one of those things where, you know, the lighting is bad, the people are not helpful if you can find them. And so like in the name of just making it like this template, this cookie cutter thing where, you know, once you know a Lowe's, you know every Lowe's, like there is some benefit to that. But at the same time, it's just this enormous thing that occupies an enormous site with like 4 times the amount of surface area for parking as the store. Right. And these are the kinds of things that it's like, this is encouraged, right? The city wants this because it's a revenue generator. People want it because they understand it. Like I know that if I go to an In-N-Out, I'm going to get the same thing. I know that if I go to a McDonald's, I'm going to get the same thing no matter which McDonald's I go to. But as a designer, this leads me to the type of project that I recently worked on where it's like, okay, you've got 5 minutes, come up with a good idea. And so
we call those charrettes.
There was our idea, and now we're going to reuse that idea over and over and over again. And so I found this graphic, and I'm going to throw it into the chat here real quick so you guys can see it. And we'll post it in our show notes. But it's a poster by Austin Kleon, who's an artist and an author. He wrote a book called Steal Like an Artist, which was fantastic. You could read it in an hour, and it's just got a lot of like fist raising, hell yeah kind of stuff in it. And here's what his poster says. It's just a text poster that he wrote. It says, I want artists to say all the right things. I want artists to stick to a script. I want artists to run every statement through a PR department. I want artists to think the same things that I do. I want artists to be on brand. I want artists to be totally predictable. I want artists to never disappoint me. I want artists to play it safe. I want me and my artist to be best friends forever. I want artists to do and be all of these things, and then I want to be allowed to complain how boring art is. And to me, that is exactly what, like the catch-22 that we are in so many times as architects, and just like thinking about the cities around us and the places and the spaces that we frequent and occupy. I mean, this is the tract home mentality, right? Like, I want a custom home because, you know, I want the faux brick on the outside. Or I want the third car garage instead of that office. That's custom, right? But I want to elevate the level of design, but I want you to be totally predictable. I want this to all fit into my spreadsheet, right? I want you to design this in, 20 hours. There you go. Be creative. And to me, design is a struggle. And if it's not, if you're not learning anything, you're probably not getting any better. And so the mentality to put a clock onto things, if it's really, it just seems like, if it really is run by the bean counters, how do you balance that with the time and environment to be creative? And as consumers, are people even asking for that? Do they care? I mean, this is kind of the crux of what I'm thinking about. I mean, it is difficult to be creative. So how do we create the space and how do we create the environment to allow us to do that? Because it really does seem like this is an epic battle. It's a deep one.
Yeah.
It's this, we've talked about the drive-through process, the creative,
right.
the drive-through architecture, right? People don't want to pay for it. Drive-through design. They want to go straight to window number 2 and just pick up the food. And so, yeah, we have to be efficient, but like, is that our highest priority? Is it, it's interesting because there was a project that I recently worked on where it was like, okay, we have this much time for design. Okay, well,
Yeah.
What's design? Tell me what design is. Okay, so do I get that much time to design, and then I get more time to document, and I get more time to, I don't know, draw diagrams and like draw the actual floor plans, or is that all encompassing big podcasting air quotes design, right? Because honestly, if that's boring, right? That's one of those things where it's like when you are under that much, it's a dichotomy. It's boring and it's stressful, right? Because when you're under that kind of stress, you're not in the right mindset to be creative.
No, because you're designing by the clock, as you just said, and you're just like, oh God, it is 9:00. Punch in, design. 5:00, punch out. It's like that. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it reminds me. There was this documentary that I was watching with one of my kids, and it had Phil Tippett, and Phil Tippett is a famous movie prop master, animator. He animated puppets. I mean, he's an amazing creative force. He was the guy who did all of the puppetry in Star Wars, Jurassic Park. When it was all stop motion, all that kind of stuff. And he had a quote in there that I was drawn to. It said, "Passion has little to do with euphoria and everything to do with patience. It's not about feeling good. It's about endurance. Like patience, passion comes from the same Latin root, pati. It does not mean to flow with exuberance," right? Everybody thinks passion means, like I said,
you're on all the time.
The fist pumping, yeah, hell yeah, kind of thing. And yeah, no, it means to suffer. That's what pati means. And it's the creative process. And it's interesting because I think we've also talked about the John Cleese talk on creativity. He has an amazing YouTube video. We'll put the link to that one in the show notes too. It's about 30 minutes long. And it talks about having creative time, and it talks about, having these two times that you flip back and forth between. But I think for the most part, people who make up these numbers in these spreadsheets have no clue that you actually need that time when nobody's bugging you, when you have to go deep, Anyway, I think passion does, mean suffering. It does.
Yeah.
Or struggle. Struggle is a word that I use for that.
I would say, I don't know if I have an answer to that, but I think one response I would say, do people care? I think there's people like us in this industry, in our architectural industry, that certainly care. But I think in general, the general populace of people, they don't care. They might care a little bit, but it's not their top priority. They worry about, who's winning the basketball game tonight, or other, their kids, or
Michigan,
or let's not get into that.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
So what's funny about that is, like, you're talking about things that have no bearing on you or your life at all, right? When you're talking about, like, when you talk about the things people care about, but when they don't care about is like the crazy amount of mediocrity that they are in and around every single day of their life that really affects their life.
Yeah, but I'm not sure people really notice that. I mean, when it comes to the place they live, they want a place that is home. It's comfortable. It meets their needs. It's got enough bedrooms for everybody. It's got enough bathrooms. It has a kitchen that is efficient or functional. And if that meets their needs, sure, would everybody like nicer fixtures, or would everybody like more or larger space, or a nicer house? Sure, probably, but maybe that's not their biggest priority. They don't really care, or they drive a Chevy, or they drive a Ford, and it's just transportation. They don't care. The people that care drive the Tesla, or
send
drive
that
the
hate
Camaro.
mail to Neil.
What's that?
At
I'll give you his address.
Hey,
It'll be,
all of our
you'll see
addresses
it.
are available. Yeah, but I'm not so sure people really.
So you say
care
people,
about
but
that
but
stuff.
people is a general term, right? And so I guess my charge to all of our listeners here is to think that I think there's a lot more room at the top than we give credit to. I think that there are people out there, a lot of people, where design wins with. And I think that I think we need to shoot higher. I think we need to make something for those people. And less so much that large band in the middle that you're talking about. Because I really do feel like people have curiosity, they have passion, they have taste. And I don't think that the thing that works for the majority of people out there needs to work for such a majority. Like there's so much of that stuff. There's such a large surplus of that stuff.
I would contend that even that middle band that we're talking about here is going, they care about design too. They just may not know it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I come from that middle band or that lower band that, you know, normally just need to fulfill the needs of, like, I need a grocery store, I need this, I need that. But I spawned out of, you know, a desire to actually want that kind of like middle kind of mediocrity to be better. And so I think people want to have better, they just may not know they do, or, you know, all they've been offered up is, you know, mediocrity, and so they've accepted it, and they say, okay, well, this fits my need, this is what I want to do, because I've got other things to do, you know, with my time, so I don't really care what my store looks like or things like that. But then if you look at when they go on vacations or things like that, and they seek out those like cool little places, like, you know, hey, let's take a walk down in Evans Village, and
That's what they call it.
Downtown. Yeah, well, downtown. Yeah. I mean, you know, Claremont's a cute little town. You know, I was just flipping through pictures of the St. Patrick's Day parade in downtown, or, you know, like in the center of Annapolis, Maryland, and to me, I love that place. I love its uniqueness. I love the character of it and things like that. And it is a postcard type town. Yeah. And, you know, it's not like just the same vanilla stuff over and over again. And that's what people seek out when they want to go and just like,
it's more authentic, right?
So, yeah. So, I mean, they may not know that they want it, but when they realize they want it, you know, they're like, oh, let's go find it. Let's go to it. Let's make that drive, you know, 30 minutes to go and hang out in Evans Village.
Yeah. Well, have you,
which is what they call it.
Again, that's what the big sign says. I wonder do you have any examples that you can think of that where you really struggled with trying to solve something architecturally that all of a sudden it just worked because you worked on it so hard, like you didn't give up? Because I think a lot of times the first answer is not the right answer, right? And or maybe you have to conform to some code that you weren't thinking of when you originally laid something out, and then all of a sudden it became a major issue that you had to solve, and it seems unsolvable. I mean, have you had examples where you've pushed through and all of a sudden it's like magic, right? Boom, there's the solution. And that's a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a big challenge was what we're nicknaming the jewel box in my current project. You know, it's this big common space that's also, you know, the entry and a couple of the larger spaces empty out into this big space, but we wanted it to feel, you know, the term has been, you know, like thrown out, more Duke-like. But, you know, it was just this space that, you know, had to have some kind of like reverence back to the tradition of collegiate Gothic, but, you know, in a more modern sense. And, you know, and that's a really hard thing to do because, you know, when you're talking about collegiate Gothic, you're thinking about tradition. You know, you're not thinking about the modern take on what that means. And so, you know, everybody had an idea of what that meant, and, you know, and trying to like mitigate everybody's expectations and also come up with a design solution was enormously tough. And we went through, God, it feels like months of iterations of it. And, you know, I feel like, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed and knocking on all sorts of wood, that it really turns out the way that we feel like it's going to turn out, because we've done the renderings, with like the nice morning sun coming in, through the trees into the this kind of like trellised effect of the sunshades and all this other stuff, and kind of creating this mood within this space, and we really feel like it's going to be like a really special space. Fingers crossed, hoping, because we see it in our head, and
it's
we,
intangible
work through
at some level, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
it's
it's something that we struggled over for quite some time to try to get it. I mean, and then of course everybody's got an opinion about it. It's like, well, do these columns, that are supposed to be representational of, both the user group that's in there, but also, kind of hearkening back to, again, the tradition of collegiate Gothic. Do they look too cold because they're now a more, they're exposed steel rather than, these big heavy stone, arches and things like that. I mean, so, everybody has all these ideas and questions and thoughts and stuff about it. And, so yeah, it was a crazy struggle to try to get that. And I'll tell you in, about 18 months, whether or not.
Yeah, you'll see. It's a big experiment. Petri dish.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there are those little moments,
so
right, that you just like struggle.
I think it's important for other people in your office to see those moments happen. And I think it's really important to say it out loud. Like, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is a hard problem. Because especially for younger people who are being mentored, I mean, they're feeling that all the time. And I think it's really important for them to see somebody, in a senior position say, this is a tough problem and I'm struggling with this. Because then they feel like, okay, what I feel is real. Like there's so many times when I'm just told to do something and nobody understands how much you're actually asking for. So I think that like that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is how good it feels and kind of to celebrate when that actually happens. Because I've got examples of laying out interior spaces where there is, 25 different rooms that need to fit into this box. And I think, holy crap, this is a circulation issue. This is an ADA issue. This is adjacency issues. This is daylighting issues. This is heating and cooling issues. There's so many things that are pushing and pulling and prodding at this box. And when you figure it out and you've got a pile of trace next to you that you've gone through to get to that point, that's a cool thing, right? And then scan all those things in and throw them into layers in Photoshop and just start clicking eyeballs on the layers and watch that thing evolve is a really cool thing to see at the end. And there's just a lot of good feelings, I think, that come from that once you've actually solved something like that. I mean, there was a performing arts theater that I was designing, and when it was so tight, like the walls could not move anymore. The row spacing could not get any tighter. It was as tight as it could get because of code, right? Like this is as close as they can get, which is not what you really want in a theater. But it was the point to which it had gotten. We have to have this many seats in the theater. We have to have it like this. There's not going to be continental seating. It's we're not going to do these aisles. We're going to do it like this. And it's like you get to a point where, holy crap, where is we've got a control room at the back. It's elevated. Where is that ADA lift going to go? And you struggle through that. You could spend 5 hours trying to solve that problem, right? You could spend as much time solving that problem as you get to design another building for some other proposal. And when you emerge from the other side successful, it's like, I kicked ass today. It's an amazing feeling that most people just don't understand. And it is a custom solution. It is something that no one will ever notice when they actually go visit that building. But it's one of those things that you go through that makes you feel like an architect. And it's a neat thing, I think, to experience. And I just hope that, we can all experience little wins like that every once in a while. It's a cool thing for sure. It's one of those reasons of why I like to do what I do.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, it's good. Good stuff. I just to bring it back to the whole design as a struggle thing. I would like to know what our listeners have struggled with. What are the little stories that, if you can type it up or tweet us or post it on our Facebook page or post it to your blog and just send us the link so that we can read about it. I think those are the kinds of things that our community understands and helps us get stronger as a community, because we are all in this together. I mean, whether you feel like that or not, I mean, this is a profession. It's bigger than you. And it would be cool to hear those stories about how you've struggled through stuff, because, commiserating is fun, but also it makes us stronger. Like, we can all teach each other something. And if you could show us kind of a little bit of insight into what you've struggled with, I mean, I think that could definitely benefit other people.
A little bit of homework, huh?
Yeah, a little homework. Why not?
All right. That's it. Everybody, you got some homework. Tweet us.
Do it.
Do it.
And I got a big spider walking across my keyboard.
Yikes.
That's what happens when you podcast in the basement, man.
Exactly.
That's their home.
Sitting here watching it, kind of like
don't freak out.
You
don't
stay
freak
over
out.
there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's
What
wrap
kind
this
of
up so
spider?
Cormac doesn't get a spider bite here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I just want to remind everyone this episode is brought to you by Arcat, and the music is by System Kid. Make sure you check them out on iTunes. You can subscribe to Archispeak on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcast app you use. Be sure to check out the archive at archispeakpodcast.com, where you can stream or download every episode we've ever released and find links to articles referenced. We can be found on Twitter, Facebook, or via email at archispeakpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, everyone, and stay subscribed.
See ya.
Bye.
Drawing straws and pails, me hard. I'm caught in a phone booth on the beach. You reach for your gun. Do I watch or run, or will someone call 911? Please, you were everything I wanted. Went overboard. You beat your babies for needing you. Still, you hunger to conceive. A brand new pup might cuddle up, but he won't be enough. Your greed, I'm caught in a phone booth on the beach. You reach for your gun. Do I watch or run, or will someone me every little thing's gonna be okay.